All right. Well, good morning, Arklatex. I am First Alert Meteorologist Jake Lambright. Of course, we've got a lot to talk about today whenever it comes to the winter weather potential in the days to come, the latest data that we've got in as of this morning. Of course, you can stay first aware and first alert to the latest over on KSLA.com through the First Alert weather app and on our KSLA social media platforms as well. I'll also be posting some updates on my platform or my accounts as well. If you search my name, Jake Lambright, wherever you get your weather, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, you can find the latest there. And after we get done talking a little bit about the forecast, I had an interview with the National Weather Service in Shreveport yesterday where we talked some about weather balloon launches. I've even got a video I took a couple weeks ago of one of those, and those are very valuable for our day-to-day data, of course, for meteorologists whenever it comes to forecasting, but more importantly for these bigger events, severe weather, winter weather in the short term. This data can tell us a whole lot about what's going on in our atmosphere. I also do want to encourage you, of course, if you're watching along on the KSLA News 12 Now app, you could do that through your TV or your phone. If you're watching this morning on Facebook, you can leave your questions in the comments, and I'll be getting to those here in a little while as I continue breaking down the forecast. All right, let me go ahead and get our graphics pulled up here. We'll start with a look at future track. This here is the European model. I'll actually make that full screen here for you briefly as we kind of walk through the latest timelines. Let me go back actually a couple hours to Friday afternoon. This is around noon, and you'll notice we could have some rain in the Arklatex. This is a lower resolution model, and I will switch over to one of our first higher resolution models. It's actually in range here in just a moment, kind of talking about all scenarios here and then what, at least for now, the most likely timeline is for any wintry weather to arrive in the Arklatex. So again, here's kind of scenario one, a lower resolution model, so it's not going to be as great whenever it comes to pinpointing specific locations. Let me go ahead and fast forward things to about Friday, 6 p.m. You'll notice across northern parts of the Arklatex, that's when we could see a shift from rain, liquid rain, into more of a wintry mix, especially across our southeastern Oklahoma and southwestern Arkansas counties. Then let's go ahead and fast forward things a little bit further. This is about 9, 10, 11 o'clock on Friday night into early Saturday morning. And this is kind of more in line with what I was talking about a couple days ago. I was thinking that future track may be a little behind there, or a little too fast on the timeline, I should say, with the transition from liquid rain over to more of a wintry mix. This is a little more in line with what I'm expecting as far as the time frame goes for that transition. Again, a little closer to midnight, early Saturday morning. So let's keep things going. We'll get to about sunrise on your Saturday. This is 7 a.m. You'll see that mix finally makes it as far south as about the I-20 corridor, with liquid rain found just to the south. And as we continue moving things further a little bit more till the afternoon hours, you'll notice that mix kind of sticking with us. And this is the European model specifically. One thing that I've noticed with these latest trends, latest model data, of course, is that it's not bringing that mix as far south, at least not early on. You'll remember yesterday that mix was basically all over the Arklatex, and these models will change in between now and whenever we actually see the wintry weather this weekend, so that's something to keep in mind. That's why I encourage you, of course, to really pay close attention to the forecast in the days to come. All right, I'll make this full screen once again so y'all can see it a little bit better. Again, kind of leaving you off. This is Saturday, 5 p.m. We'll keep things going a little bit further for you till about late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. This is around midnight. And again, you'll notice that mix still in the Arklatex. And this is what is a little bit concerning to me, is that we keep some kind of wintry precipitation around for quite some time. Now, what I can't show you here are forecast soundings, and I will be looking into those a little more in depth, especially that afternoon update to kind of decipher whether or not freezing rain's the most likely for us in the Arklatex or sleet. The difference between freezing rain and sleet could make a pretty big difference, of course, in impacts for us across the area. All right, let's keep things going into Sunday. You'll notice a light snow mix starts to work its way in, especially along and north of the I-30 corridor for us. And then you'll notice, again, that mix there starting to expand into more portions of the Arctic, especially that southeastern corner that didn't see as much in the way of wintry weather during much of Saturday. Again, there's Saturday night. You'll notice Sabine, Natchitoches, Wind Parish still kind of dealing with more rain as opposed to wintry mix, according to the European model, which isn't going to be everything. Of course, got to evaluate all the data and kind of quality control things. But again, looking at a little bit more of a transition to a snow mix from there. And then by the early afternoon hours, most of that winter weather finally gets out of the Arklatex, at least, again, according to the European model timeline. All right, I do want to take a look here, and I'm going to be looking at this for the first time alongside with you. We have a model called the graph model. This is one of our high-resolution models, and it goes out the furthest. We'll actually get more data, another high-resolution model that'll take us out through Friday night. That'll come out late tonight, early tomorrow morning. So may not be able to show you that one till tomorrow morning. But let's go ahead and take a look at our graph model, kind of see what it shows, at least for as far out as it goes. You can notice there all that rain. We've been dealing with some rain so far today, and we'll continue to deal with that as well. We have some updates on that over on the First Alert Weather app, so I encourage you to check that out for the latest timeline on that rain. Let's go ahead, though, and go into Friday. It kind of shows a transition to a wintry mix there, especially for areas north of I-30. That's around dinner time, 5 to 6 p.m. I'm going to make that full screen for you so you see it a little bit better. That pink that you see up toward Queen, out toward Texarkana, is kind of a scattered wintry mix, again, for those areas. Then as we head into the overnight hours, it keeps that mix really north of I-30 for quite some time, finally bringing it south by about 7 a.m. And it looks like that's about as far out as it goes for us in the Arklatex. So again, this high-resolution model is going to do a better job of kind of pinpointing who sees what kind of precipitation and when. Those high-res models, again, pinpoint things a lot better compared to low-resolution models, which is what we just took a look at with the European model. Now, this is not everything, and again, this only goes out till Saturday about 7 a.m. or so, so there's a lot that we're missing here, and of course, those high-resolution models, they don't go out as far, so we're going to be waiting in the days to come for more data on that. I'm going to leave that full screen for you here for just a moment. And bear with me for just a second. I'm going to have to put myself on mute for literally just a second or two, and then I'll be right back with you. Sorry about that. Of course, we've been kind of going on a temperature roller coaster here these past couple of days, so I'm a human too, of course. The allergies are definitely starting to get to me. All right, so we've talked a little bit, of course, about what's going on with the European model, with one of our shorter range high-res models. I do also want to kind of take a look here at the American model, see what it's showing as well. It's kind of trended a little bit differently compared to the European model over the past couple of days, but also, I'll be completely honest with you, I'm not a big fan of winter weather. So if you're looking at this and thinking, yuck, gross, I don't want to be, potentially off the roads this weekend, I'm right there with you. Winter weather is not my thing. Now, with what the American model has shown and kind of keeping it a little further south, at least with yesterday's runs, I would love that, best case scenario, but it's not the most realistic one, unfortunately. Let's take a look at what the latest American model shows as of today. We'll go ahead and kind of jump ahead to the weekend. Let me go back, way back here, to about Friday, dinner time. This is 5 p.m. it shows, and this is a lower resolution model, so again, not going to do the best with pinpointing who sees what kind of precipitation and when, but gives us a good idea kind of on a regional view what to expect. So here's a look at things Friday dinner time around 5 p.m. You'll notice a transition north of I-30. That's the big one of the big points. North of I-30 from liquid rain to more of a wintry mix. And again, that's north of I-30. So let's take a look at things closer to 9, 10 p.m. You'll notice that, and this is Friday evening, that mix slowly starts to make its way down into southern portions of the Arklatex, south of I-30. Not quite to the I-20 corridor just yet by that point. I'm sorry about that, kind of multitasking here to the side, getting comments ready to answer your questions here in a moment. But again, it's closer after midnight. That's when we start to see things get closer to the I-20 corridor. And then from there, you'll notice that mix starting to fill in as we head into Saturday. Now, very similar, and model consistency is really key here. Very similar to the European model, it actually has some of our southern counties and parishes not seeing that mix, at least until later on. That's Saturday, 3 p.m., and you'll notice south of I-20, the American model painting the picture that more locations will be seeing rain, liquid rain, as opposed to any kind of wintry precipitation. However, as we head into Saturday night into early Sunday, that's when those temperatures get cooler. Similarly, it does show more of a mix starting to enter southern portions of the Arklatex. It also shows maybe some snow flurries trying to work its way in out on the back end of the system. Would not be surprising, but when it comes to snow accumulations, we're not looking at a lot. Timing, too, with the American and European model are both surprisingly consistent at this point, and really that overall picture is consistent, and as meteorologists, that's what we like to see. Of course, there are some things like forecast soundings I'll have to take a look at a little bit closer, especially the afternoon update, and unfortunately I don't think I can show those to you here on the podcast, and those kind of give us an idea of the profile behind the scenes of the atmosphere as a whole. And whenever I talk with NWS Shreveport meteorologist Ryan Knapp here in a little while about weather balloons, those weather balloons actually give us an observed atmospheric profile, kind of tell us what's going on in the atmosphere in real time. And that data is going to be very important as we head into Friday night, Saturday, and into Sunday as well. I've got a lot of questions I see coming in, and I'll be getting to those here in just a moment. So bear with me on that. I'm going to go ahead and switch things back over full screen here for just a moment. I do want to remind you that we've got those first alert weather days in place starting late Friday night through Sunday, of course, as the confidence in wintry precipitation is there. Specifics still a little bit on the unknown side whenever it comes to potential ice accumulations, especially around the I-20 corridor. That's kind of one of the hot spots. We're looking at about half an inch of ice to 3/4 of an inch of ice. Go ahead and pull this up for you here. Then, as you notice out toward our southern counties, southern parishes, as I was just showing you there with that latest data, looks like that will be mostly rain with just a trace of ice. Again, it's really going to be toward the end of this winter weather event that areas like Sabine and Natchitoches Parish, well, Shelby, Nacogdoches County, St. Augustine, and Sabine County in Texas kind of transitioned over to a rain. So if you're in those areas shaded in green there, again, that's our extreme southern East Texas counties and northwest Louisiana parishes, you're looking at dealing with mostly rain. The impact's a little bit greater as you head out toward I-20. And then, of course, it's kind of 50-50 snow and ice. McCurtain County, Oklahoma, and our extreme northern southwest Arkansas counties in the Arklatex. All right, I've got some questions on Facebook and also trying some new things here with streaming on TikTok as well. So I'll answer some questions from both when it comes to this winter weather event. Just going to make sure that this is working on my end. Start with Brittany's comment. Good morning, Brittany. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Lewis asking about, is the freezing rain in Texarkana going to be heavy enough to do damage to oak trees? And I'm going to have to pull this up here on my end to finish reading that. Pine trees are softer, won't take much ice to damage them. Oak trees are a little more solid. So whenever it comes to potential ice amounts, right now I'm still kind of expecting about half an inch to 3/4 of an inch of ice out that way. You will see a little bit of snow as well, and we will be continuing to adjust and fine-tune those totals. Data will change, and today's Wednesday, so we're still 2 days out from the start of this happening. Things will kind of vary. Things will continue changing a little bit between now and then when it comes to specific totals. So I do want to emphasize it's important to check back with the forecast. Of course, some power outages will be possible, and I can't rule out that some tree limbs could be falling as well with those ice accumulations. I see Alex says keep it west and north. Alex, I'm right there with you. If it could be 80 degrees this weekend and sunny, I would take that any day over this winter weather. I see a lot of people chiming in saying good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to y'all as well. Teresa, too, not a fan of the winter weather. Keep it north. I'm right there with you. That's why I'm here in Louisiana. Lived in East Texas before I moved here, or lived here in Louisiana for a little while, but most of my life I lived in East Texas, and that's why I'm here. Try to avoid this the best that I can. Jonathan asking, this is a good question. Will there be black ice on any of the roads? And yes, with what I'm expecting right now, if you are in the light blue, the white, or the magenta color, I do expect ice on the roadway. Some of that could be black ice. It's hard to see, and that's why it's important to stay off of those roadways as well. See, Alita's joining me from Vivian this morning. Thank you so much, Alita, for joining me. Oh, I see Mr. Bruce is joining me. Hey, Mr. Bruce. Mr. Bruce was my high school principal for a little while back over in East Texas. So thank you so much, Mr. Bruce, for joining me. And this podcast, my first one hosting it, a little bit on the rough side for me because I've got a lot that I'm kind of managing here. But I do, trust me, as I get more comfortable with everything and in the system here, things should get a little bit better. Brittany asking if things will shift toward Natchitoches. And Brittany, it is certainly a possibility. The latest guidance here, what I've seen during the overnight runs and the morning runs, actually show this shifting a little bit further to the north. Now, that will still impact much of the Arklatex, but for you out in Natchitoches, it does mean you will see mostly rain, just a little bit of ice on the back end of the system. I see Lonty's joining me from southwest Arkansas this morning. Good morning, Lonty. We'll definitely be dealing with some impacts out toward southwestern Arkansas. All right, so I've got some questions. Again, I've got some on Facebook. If you have any more questions, I'm to the top of Facebook, so feel free to ask those questions there. I'll be answering those here shortly. While I wait on some new questions, I've got some questions here in the TikTok chat as well. I can't put those on the screen for you, but I am going to read some of those for the Arklatex region. I see somebody's asking about flying out of Greenville. I imagine that would be Greenville, Mississippi to Houston. So a little bit beyond the Arklatex. That would be Monday. Some travel impacts are still possible. So if you're in the Arklatex trying to fly out, there could certainly still be some travel delays and road impacts, especially as we head into Monday, because temperatures, once they fall below freezing Friday night, likely will not rise to above freezing until during the day Monday. We're talking about some pretty chilly temperatures. If you're headed to other parts of the state, including Baton Rouge, the impact's not expected to be as great in Baton Rouge. However, our sister station, WAFB, will be following those impacts more closely for you. They'll have a better idea and more specifics for you on the forecast in southeast Louisiana. See, somebody wants to bring the snow all the way down to the Gulf Coast. We need to move it more to the north, not to the south. And again, just kind of glancing over some questions. Again, I see another one about Baton Rouge, WAFB, Livingston. Again, WAFB will have more specifics. However, for us in the Arklatex, we're kind of on, again, our southern counties and parishes in northern Louisiana, so Sabine, Natchitoches, Wynne is going to be on that line between mostly rain and just a little bit of ice. So the further south you go, the lower the impacts are expected to be at this point. So kind of glancing through, I see some people just outside the Arklatex, Pineville, central Louisiana, asking some questions. Right now, it's looking more like rain, maybe a little bit of ice here, but more so a trace of ice. And out toward the Monroe area, you're along I-20. So this is important if you have any travel plans out to the east of the Arklatex this weekend along the interstate. The I-20 corridor specifically, still looking at some icy impacts out that way at this time. And a good question, Minden, looking again at mostly a wintry mix, mostly ice with a little bit of rain. I see some more Facebook comments coming in. Brianna is asking about Shreveport. We're in the same thing here. I've got that map pulled up here in the magenta. So we're looking at mostly ice. Right now, I've still got amounts around 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of ice with a little bit of rain to start things off. Carol's got a good question. Will I-49 be closed? I have not heard any word on that just yet. I will actually check my work phone here while I have it. Just make sure I haven't got an email about interstate closures. I don't see anything new here on my end. So I-49 still open at this time. And again, that's something to stay tuned to DOTD about. And also a good resource. I'll actually pull it up here. We'll walk through it in just a moment. But there's actually a great state website, 511la.org, where you can see traffic cameras, kind of get a good idea of what the roads look like. They also do a good job of keeping you posted with road closures. Even the day-to-day when we're not dealing with winter weather, you can see accidents, if the interstates are backed up, all of that through there as well. Sherry's asking about Atlanta, Texas. You're mostly going to see ice, maybe a couple snow flurries, but not looking at much in terms of snow accumulations in Atlanta. New Boston, Hooks, Texarkana area, mostly ice. You'll see a little bit more snow compared to us, closer to the I-20 corridor, but again, still looking at ice. Patsy asking a good question: will Shreveport get iced, or will West Shreveport get the most of it? We will see a good bit of ice here in the Shreveport-Bossier area. So something to keep in mind. I'm going to pull something up here on my end to take a closer look at some things behind the scenes on the ice potential. But yes, Shreveport more so going to be an ice threat as opposed to any kind of snow with this round of winter weather. As I said before, I'm not the biggest winter weather fan, but if we have to get winter weather, as many of you would probably agree, I would much rather see snow as opposed to ice with this. I'm going to take this out and just kind of see what we're looking at. And the America model has been trending a little further south. Again, not the most likely scenario for us, but still kind of seeing amounts agreeing with what I'm agreeing with, between 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. Likely needs to be shifted up a little bit from what the raw American model showing here. That's what I'm looking at off to the side. So I would expect very similar for the Shreveport area. Ashdown, Arkansas. Pam's asking about Ashdown. That's out kind of in between that half snow, half ice line, and then mostly ice and a little bit of snow. So you will see a little bit of snow with this at the minimum. But again, a lot of the Arklatex expected to see ice out of this, at least for the start of the event. as well. Misty's asking about Dallas. For those of you traveling to Dallas this weekend, I wouldn't cancel your plans just yet, but evaluate the forecast closely. We're going to be talking more specifics later on today and especially tomorrow. But Dallas definitely going to be impacted by winter weather. I would expect road impacts. I would expect impacts at the airport. So something to keep in mind if you were planning to take a weekend trip to Dallas, or you had a flight out of Dallas this weekend, anytime from Friday night through early Monday, expect to have to pivot from those plans. And again, we've still got over 48 hours before this event starts, and some things could change. We've seen some changes with the data so far this morning. But again, as of now, expect impacts. Wendy asking about Benton. Benton, you're dealing with mostly ice and a little bit of rain to start things off with this event. Doc Adams, Bossier, same thing. Vicky asking about Coshada, very, very similar for us. I see Rashiria's asking about Lincoln Parish getting any flurries. It's a possibility. If we see some flurries, it will be just a couple flurries on the back end of the system. That's about all that I'm expecting. Checking some things there to the side. But we're going to start things off. Again, Lincoln Parish, you're going to start off with some rain. That's what most of us along I-20 will start off with. Then that will transition to either some sleet or freezing rain. And from there, maybe a few snow flurries on the back end of that system. But again, not looking at much in terms of snow accumulations. I see Tristan joining me from East Texas this morning. What's East Texas looking like in Marshall, Wascom, Elysian Fields areas? Let me make sure that was the entire comment that was pulled up. Okay, perfect. So for East Texas, Marshall, Wascom, Elysian Fields, if you're joining Harrison, Marion, Gregg, Upshur County, even Panola, Rusk, you're looking at very similar to what we're expecting here in northwest Louisiana. I'm expecting mostly ice. We'll start off with a little bit of rain. That transitions to more of a mixed precip. So again, expecting mostly ice with this, maybe a couple flurries there on the back end of the system. Angela's joining me from Sibley, Louisiana this morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to double check, make sure I've got the right idea of where Sibley is real quick. You're over at Webster Parish, perfect. So along I-20, like I was thinking, very, very similar. We're looking at a little bit of rain to start things off and then a transition to ice. Tim is asking about Bossier City. And again, same there. This is a great question. This is from Rebecca Norman. Am I concerned about the accumulation of ice on power lines? And the answer to that question, and I don't say this to scare anybody, but yes, I am kind of concerned with the accumulation. And these could change. I mean, things could really, ice accumulation could back off here in the next couple of hours, and that could remain consistent. So when I say I'm concerned about that, right now we're kind of looking at 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of ice accumulating on the power lines, and anything above 1/4 inch could cause some power outages. So I'm not saying that everybody's going to lose power. Again, it just depends case by case, but we are getting to amounts with potential ice accumulation where we'll have to pay close attention to possible ice accumulations. David is asking about a trip to Lake Charles. If you're leaving the Arklatex after Friday evening, it's going to be tough, and I would discourage any kind of travel. I'm going to answer a couple questions here. I'm running a little bit longer than I expected. I've got an interview to get to with the National Weather Service in Shreveport. I'm going to be showing that to you after a short break. I can't answer questions about school on Friday. Since these impacts won't start till the overnight hours on Friday, I would imagine schools will be open. But again, those are not decisions that we make here. Lincoln Parish, Ruston, West Monroe, Plain Dealing, Sarepta. Yes, same impacts. We're going to be looking at mostly ice starting at the earliest Friday night, likely with the latest kind of guidance we're getting, maybe starting during the day on Saturday, and then that will continue into the day on a little bit into the day on Sunday. All right, we're going to take a short break here real quick, and then when we come back, I've got an interview with the National Weather Service meteorologist Ryan Knapp. We're going to talk about weather balloons that are launched every day, the data that's collected by the weather balloons, and how that is important, especially when it comes to forecasting for severe weather and winter weather events like this. Not going to leave you for long. Be right back here in about 1 minute, again, with that interview from Ryan Knapp. All right, and I'm back. Before we actually get to that interview, I did want to show something here real quick. A great resource for you if you're looking at if you have to get on the roads while things are that wintry precipitation is going on. Here's a great resource. It's 511la.org. You can see traffic speeds, you can see closures, accidents. You can also look at DOTD camera. So I'll kind of go up here to Shreveport real quick. Take a look at the metro, and you'll notice these little camera icons. I can click at that. We'll actually go closer to I-20 at Airline. I can click show video there, and it will load up. All right, so now we're going to get to the interview. I'm going to be talking to meteorologist Ryan Knapp with the National Weather Service in Lake Charles. Or in Shreveport, I should say. There's a video of me in Lake Charles just a couple weeks ago launching a weather balloon, and it's a pretty cool experience for sure. A lot of valuable data that we get from that, so I'm going to go ahead and switch things over, again, with my interview with Ryan Knapp, a meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Shreveport. All right, so when it comes to balloon launches, y'all launch balloons twice a day, morning and evening. And those are very, very important, of course, to our data and how we forecast. Can you tell me a little bit more about the kind of data that the weather balloons collect?
Yeah, so I mean, the weather balloons are really important because they do anything from temperature, humidity. Really, it's just really important data that goes into just the general forecast process, but then we can also take that information and throw it into the models as well. So, like you said, we do it twice a day, one in the morning, one at night. We have the opportunity to also release extra balloons. So sometimes we can do up to 4 launches a day if it's super critical for us to get information in an active weather environment.
Absolutely. So you mentioned sometimes y'all will launch extra balloons. With winter weather on the horizon this weekend, is that one of those special cases where y'all will launch additional balloons?
It's definitely possible, especially when we're battling different precip types, as this type of event is looking to possibly be. So when you're battling anything like sleet, freezing rain, getting those extra balloon launches during an event or even just a little bit ahead of an event, we can sometimes see that warm nose we often look at on SKUTs. And it's very important for us to see that because that helps us know what kind of precip type we're going to see at the surface, depending on how much warming there actually is higher up in the atmosphere.
Absolutely. And as you were mentioning, of course, very, very important with stuff like this and as far as impacts go in the Arklatex. So those balloons launch 2 to 4 times a day generally, and that data is very, very important for forecasting and for model data. Can you explain a little bit more about how that data, that observed data, goes into models and how it can help make it a little bit better for us when we're forecasting?
Yeah, so I mean, when you're this far out, you're really just going off of the calculations of the models themselves. You don't actually have any data going into the models directly to help them initialize correctly. So you can oftentimes get very outrageous solutions as you see, in days 5, 6, 7. We talk about it a lot with hurricane forecasting too. How important the hurricane hunter information is that goes into the models as well. So I mean, it's very important stuff. It's the same thing with these weather balloon launches. Getting that information, temperature, dew point, humidity, all the very basic weather information that comes from these sondes can go right into the models and allow for us to initialize the models better, which ultimately allows them to perform better in the short term, which overall helps our forecast to make sure we get the right information out there to the public.
Absolutely. So very, very critical. I do believe the hurricane hunters plan to fly to help forecast that winter storm that's coming a little bit better. How is the data that the hurricane hunters that they'll be collecting different from a weather balloon launched? And I know we've got many launches across the United States. So how does that data differ, and how can that further help us with the forecasting in the short term?
Like I said, the model data is very important when we talk about different precip types. Same thing goes with the radio sondes and the drop sondes. They go hand in hand. They have the same type of information, pressure, wind speed, humidity, and that goes into the models to help initialize them correctly. So really, it's just both of that data going in together really helps the models perform better in the long run.
Absolutely. I got some questions, maybe some fun facts for viewers about the weather balloons and balloon launches.
Yeah.
The first one, these weather balloons are pretty big. I mean, compared to a traditional, like a birthday balloon or something like that. About how big do they get when they're fully inflated?
They can get up to about the size of a small family home. They get pretty big, and
wow.
they're pretty big even when we just start. We're not using helium for these balloons. We're using hydrogen. So it's a lot that goes into the weather balloon process. But yeah, they get really big, and they can oftentimes burst around 100,000 feet. So think about it. If an airliner flies about 30 to 40,000 feet, these are going significantly higher than that. And then, like I said, the radiosonde will go up with the balloon pops, and then it comes down. And it doesn't just fall down as a projectile. We do have a parachute attached to it, but it's collecting that data all the way up into the atmosphere. And like I said, that data goes directly into our computers, which then goes into the model data ultimately.
So you mentioned the radiosonde has a parachute, and I know it's not super common, but sometimes radiosondes will fall in somebody's backyard, for example. How often have y'all actually been able to recover those radiosondes?
The nice thing is they, if they do fall out into the open, they ultimately just stay out there, and they just ultimately, trying to think what the word is. They just kind of decompose naturally with the earth. So that's not an issue, but we sometimes have people who call us and say, hey, a weather balloon, radiosonde landed in our backyard. Should I give it back to you guys? And really, they're harmless. People oftentimes can keep them as a souvenir, but also they end up, they can end up on the side of the road. We've had times where the balloon will land, right down the street, and we can sometimes track that and go over and pick it up. But probably 9 out of 10 times, we never see them again.
All right, I guess one of my final questions, I know when we've got strong upper level winds, that those winds can take a balloon super far. How far is like the furthest that you've been able to record that a weather balloon has gone from Shreveport?
I mean, I've seen it track all the way over into Mississippi,
wow.
But I don't know specifically like a record or anything. That might be something we have to start keeping track of, is like the overall record of how far these go. But I've been tracking them. Sometimes they end up in Mississippi. Sometimes they end up over in Arkansas. But a lot of it just depends on the upper level flow and how strong it is to take those balloons where they move. But they can travel quite a distance. And I mean, we've seen other forecast offices say, hey, such and such office, your balloon ended up over here. So it's pretty cool to see where they can end up. But like I said, the data that they provide is very critical to the forecast process, and it's important that we do them.
I think I got 2 more questions for you.
Yeah.
The first one, are there any other fun facts or any of the highlights with the weather balloon or the data that we missed so far?
It's a fun part of the job. But one of the key things I think that a lot of people don't realize with our office specifically, now not every office has to deal with this, but if you look at the weather forecast offices of the National Weather Service, a lot of times they're often co-located with airports. So one thing we have to do is we have to coordinate with with Shreveport Regional, just because we're so close to them. We oftentimes have moments where the balloon may drift across the terminal, so we have to talk to them before we launch just to get some sort of clearance, make sure there's no other air traffic in the pattern. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun part of the process. It's fun to do them, especially when we have active weather going on. Obviously, if it's thundering outside, we can't launch. That's a quick way for us to get struck by lightning. But no, they're very important to the forecast process and helps us do our job better, and also make sure the information we provide to the public is at its best.
My last question for y'all, what are y'all's thoughts so far on the upcoming winter weather potential for the weekend?
Yeah, I think the key thing here is just to remain, current with the forecast. Obviously, we talk about being far out from, the actual onset of the event. So make sure you're staying up to date with accurate information. So you can always follow us on our social media at the National Weather Service, our local office, the National Weather Service office in Shreveport. We put out 2 forecasts a day as well. But also making sure, I think the critical thing is making sure you're getting the right information from the right people, whether that be us here at the National Weather Service, your local media, just making sure that you're getting the right information and staying up to date here in the days ahead.
All right. Well, thank you so much. A lot to learn there and a lot to unpack. Of course, some very valuable data as we head into this weekend, which looks very interesting. And as you said, make sure to keep tabs with those trusted sources as the forecast continues to evolve.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you. All right, and that was my interview with meteorologist Ryan Knapp with the National Weather Service over in Shreveport, right here in Shreveport, Louisiana. All right, I've got to go ahead and get ready for our noon newscast. If you're watching on the KSLA News app or on your smart TV, you can see that noon newscast and my forecast there. I do hope to be back on with another streaming update for you a little bit later on this afternoon, so make sure you have those KSLA News app notifications turned on, and of course, we'll have those on our social platforms as well, so you can ask some questions. For now, though, I'm going to go ahead and hop off, but thank you so much for joining me today, and of course we'll have updates for you throughout the rest of the day.